Bad at welding, good at grinding. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hit or Miss. I'm Mike and this is Bubbas Workbench. Today we're going to talk about grinders, the handheld variety. And this, I'm going to change format a little bit on this Hit or Miss. Rather than just a pros or cons, I'm going to go over some additional aspects of grinders. We're going to discover the type of grinders, some grinder safety and etiquette, the woodworker versus the metal worker, an ideal setup, and then we'll finish it off with the hit or miss pros and cons. Okay, so let's get right into it. Grinder types. Typically, grinders can be labeled by the type of switch. You have a sliding switch. This one happens to be on top. Some are on the side, such as in the DeWalt. You have a side switch. And then you have a paddle switch, which I do not have, which goes along the belly of the grinder. And then you finish it off with what's called a trigger type. And that usually is only on the bigger grinders, like the 7-inch, where you have a handle at the back, and so you've got like a trigger. And those are the type that you're going to need two hands, one to stabilize, so the other one becomes your power. So your safety and etiquette. There are some strong safety concerns with grinders that I'd like people to know. Even though I'm going to be just talking to the wind when I say this, but grinders should never be set down on their disc or even on their side. As you will even notice, most grinders have little feet right here indicating grinders should be this way. That no matter what, even if this switch is on or anything happens, they're not going to go shooting across the room or whatever. Even this DeWalt, it's got little feet. It kind of gives you a clue there. Do not put these discs down. That should be common sense. Wear safety goggles. And I'm not talking safety glasses. I mean wear goggles. Something that covers, like this one. These I use because I can still wear my glasses. You want something that covers all the way around. They do have safety glasses that have foam on the edges. Those would work as well. You really don't want to have the experience of getting your eye drilled out with a Dremel or having your nose reconstructed when a grinder runs up your face. So that's one thing I strongly suggest is you wear a face shield above all with grinding, especially for long periods of time. And then a third one would be fire safety. You got to be mindful of where the sparks are flying. The woodworkers who might have wood shavings or planer shavings around. And so let's get on to the woodworker versus the metalworker. I mean, this video we're focusing on getting a Harbor Freight grinder, if you should or should not. You know, many woodworkers, you just need a grinder for maybe cutting a bolt, maybe some metal deburring after you've drilled some holes. And so I would say that a Harbor Freight is a good choice for just short duration, once in a while, sort of tasks. You could get away with this. Now, flip that over to the metal worker. A metal worker, you're not going to want to use this as your primary grinder. And so then I want to go into what I call the ideal setup. And if you want to call it a perfect world with grinders, you're going to want more than one. As a metal worker, the ideal setup would be to have 3 of these. That each one of these you can dedicate to one type of disc. As I have the Harbor Freight here with a grinding disc on it. I've got my DeWalt with the flat disc on it. And so then you would have a third one, could have the cutting disc on there. That way there's not a lot of, having to take the time to change a disc. And what that also does is, with these Harbor Freight, there's pros and cons on using one for one task and one for the other. I like to use the Harbor Freight for the abusive tasks, I call it. Something where you're putting the most strain on your tool, and if you burn up the motor, you don't really care if it's a Harbor Freight, you just go get another one. What I tend to do is, as I said, use this for the rough tasks, stuff that's abusive. Like grinding is actually quite abusive on a grinder. It puts the most load on the motor. It's doing the most work. What I like to do is then I use my DeWalt for the finesse work. And let me get into that a little bit more. The biggest drawback to a Harbor Freight grinder is the fact that there is an incredible amount of vibration in this thing. So much vibration that you will literally get fatigue in your forearms and wrists if you use this for any length of time. So then you can go back and forth with, that could also be considered a safety factor, because with a grinder that is just so out of balance, it's vibrating itself to the point your arms get fatigued. Imagine what it could be doing to the disc itself. And if your disc has any sort of hidden fractures in it, that could also lead to its failure and explosion, which goes back to why you want to wear a face shield at all times. So then you could go back to, well, then you could use your higher end grinder for like a grinding disc where there's like zero vibration. This thing is amazing compared to Harbor Freight and the amount of vibration you get. So that's also in my case why I use this for the flat disc. I want the most smoothest finish I could get, so with no vibration I can achieve that. So we've finalized this with the a hit or miss. So yes, this is a well worth purchase, or worthwhile purchase. Get the Harbor Freight if you're just going to use it for once in a while and you want to cut a bolt. But I would suggest having a backup and buying something of noteworthy quality. I can vouch for DeWalt, but I think there's nothing wrong with having both. As I said, use this for the abusive tasks and not worry about what happens to it. And then get yourself a high-end model for your finesse work. Now there's, I believe, 3 models of grinders at Harbor Freight. You've got a 4-inch model, which I believe says Drill Master on it. You don't want that one. You want the 4.5 inch. And this is what they call a heavy duty. And then they have a next higher model, heavy duty, which has a paddle switch. But I don't recommend paddle switches. The problem with a paddle switch is because it's inevitable someone's going to set it down this way. It's quite possible that you can turn on the switch when you set it down. If it's on a hose or cord, something gets underneath it, it's quite possible to turn on a paddle switch grinder. So yeah, the Harbor Freight is definitely a hit. In the description I'll put down the model number for what I used. I'll also put the model numbers of the goggles and the face shield. These are all of which are from Harbor Freight. And with that, you take care.